I'm RJ. I'm a compulsive overeater. I'm very grateful to, one, to be in this program, and two, to be able to come out today. I live over in La Crescenta, which is by Pasadena, and it's perfect that this meeting is Sunday morning. There's absolutely no traffic on that 101 freeway. You gotta love that. What I'd like to, I'll start out by qualifying about what it was like. I don't like spending a lot of time on that. I like to talk about recovery, and this is a focus on recovery. So I'll just say that when I was a very, I don't know, first memory I have of something that has to do with a food problem is, and I'll just say that I am a sugar addict. That is 99% of my problem. And I have a binge starve pattern to my eating. So I guess I'm about 10 years old, and if any of you remember in the 60s, some of the older people, the Schwinn Bike Company came out with this really cool bike called the Stingray, and it had the ape hanger bars, and it had a shock absorber, and a slick tire, and a banana seat, and every kid that I knew wanted one of those for Christmas. So my dad, expecting that, he says, son, what do you want for Christmas? And instead of asking for this really cool bicycle, I said, you know what, Dad, the greatest thing I really would like to have for Christmas is a case of Captain Crunch cereal. And so that's what he got. And, I don't know how many 24 boxes of that. And as you can imagine, it lasted like a month or something, maybe 2 months. I don't really remember. But that was it. That was what I ate 24/7 for until it was gone. Certainly there's many other stories like that. When I was in high school, I organized a petition to get our cafeteria to open up early in the morning before school to provide sweets for anybody that wanted to, start off their day with some sugar. And, that's all I thought about for most of my childhood. Now, on the other hand, I grew up with undiagnosed ADHD and got in a lot of trouble with that kind of, hyper thing. But because of that, I never gained any weight. And again, I would do the binge starving thing. So I didn't actually have a weight problem until I was in my mid-30s. And the way that came about is that I have another addiction, drugs and alcohol. And in 1995, after a severe overdose, they took me off to the hospital. And when I came out of there, they put me in a recovery home over in Pasadena. And I thought I could stay there, a 30-day program. And to make the long story short, my family, which my wife, I have 3 beautiful daughters, and she said, I don't want a person like you in our home. And so I stayed in this recovery home for about a year and a half. And during that time, on the one hand, I got a good foundation, obviously, in recovery. They had meetings every day in the home. The downside is that in programs like that, their solution to a craving is sugar. And so in the recovery home, every place you went in the kitchen and dining room area was boxes of the cold cereal and things in the freezer and all the kind of, every night at dinner there was desserts and everything. And so this time, though, I don't have that same kind of energy burning capacity, and I gained about 50 pounds during that time. And there came a point in my recovery in AA where I would go to a meeting, and before the meeting and the break, people were, chain smoking and then, just downing cup after cup of coffee. And always, I volunteered to be the cake lady because, giving those birthdays was a really great thing. And of course, you had to take it home, whatever was left over. And so I didn't really get a lot of recovery in that program. Nothing against AA, it saved my life. It got me started. But that's what I would like to share about those of you that are in this room. It's a whole different program for me. In drugs and alcohol and other programs, I just stopped doing that. I don't have to go to places where those issues exist. But as we all know, in this program, we have to live with our disease. We have to live with our substance. And in order to do that, takes a level of surrender and a level of spirituality, in my experience, that is unparalleled in other addiction programs. So when I come to these meetings and I see each of you, I just look at the people that it's like the last car on the train. And if we can get into long-term and real recovery in this program, I think that we then become one of the most unique and powerful people anywhere in this planet. Just think about it. If every person in this world had this kind of a 12-step program, this kind of recovery, had these tools to use in their life, imagine what our world would be like. And that's kind of how I live my life, and I think many of you do the same, which is, am I the kind of person that I would like other people to be like, and would that make the world a better place? Now, what happened is a little bit of an interesting point. In 2003, even though I had been in 5 years of recovery, and I'd had a slip and I was back with 5 years of being clean and sober, I got involved in another addiction, and this time it was a gambling addiction. And that one is very mentally and financially destructive. So I started off with the physical, I went into the mental, and that problem led me, at one point in time I was arrested, and I spent about a month and a half in jail. Now, the upside of that was, and again, I'm carrying the weight that I talked about, and there is really poor nutrition in jail. And there were some really big gang kind of people who just needed more calories, and so generally my meals were absconded by, these people before I got a chance to have them. And I didn't really pay attention to this, but when I got out of jail and I'm back here in La Crescenta, everybody's just raving about how good I looked, and I get on the scale, I'm down about 35 pounds, and, I'm fitting into clothes I hadn't worn in 15, 20 years, and I'm a pretty happy guy, and I'm thinking, oh, what a gift, and if I'll just, for now, I'll be able to, maintain, and that lasted about a month, and I was already back about 20 of those pounds, and somehow this time I had a different perspective, that addiction wasn't just my drug problem. Addiction for me was all substances and behaviors that I fell into a compulsive behavior with. And so that's when I came to, it was April of 2003, I came to my first OA meeting there in La Crescenta. And for the first year, I treated OA like again, it's amazing after all these years, but I treated OA like a diet program. I came in here specifically to lose that weight and to keep that weight off. And I figured the tools and spirituality and things, I'll just take care of that, through whatever program I go to. But the only reason I needed to come to OA was for my food problem. But what I learned in OA is that food is not my problem. Food has never been my problem. Food is the substance that I used to medicate myself whenever I had feelings, good, bad, indifferent, whatever they were. Those feelings manifested themselves in a desire to escape my problems in life. And so I would act out by, eating the food. Again, I'm a binger, I'm a grazer. Food was the way that especially after I got into recovery of these other substances, was the way that I maintained my emotional management. So what it turned out for me is that in OA, I began to really get the message of steps 4 through 9, which to me is the emotional recovery. And that's what's changed my life. And so I'm grateful amidst all of the various programs that I've attended, and many, many programs, this is the one where I really gained the internal recovery, the spirituality that allows me to live a life that is free from that issue of dependence upon reacting to my emotional state with instant gratification. And so for me, my definition of spirituality is the gap of time between when I have a feeling and when I decide how I'm going to deal with that feeling. And as I got stronger and stronger, deeper in my spirituality in the program, that gap could extend longer. I remember one time early, maybe it was 2005 or 6, I had a real problem with somebody. I was so angry with how the way they wronged me, and I wrote a scathing email, a very long one, where I just trashed the person. I just went all off on them. And as I read it, I thought, I'm just not going to click send just yet. Oh boy, it was right in the middle of my anger, and I really wanted to hit that button. But instead, we have tools of the program. I called my sponsor. I went to a meeting. I shared about it, and I decided to leave that email in my draft inbox until I would either decide to send it or edit it or do something. And that email sat in my inbox for over a year. Well, I couldn't delete it. I still had a resentment against that person. At least I didn't act out on it, so I didn't have an amend that I had to make down the road. And of course, those are the kind of experiences and how to deal with that forced me into a deeper commitment to the program. I can't get past those resentments by just kind of, thinking about the program. If I don't attend meetings, if I don't use those tools in all their varieties, especially working with a sponsor, I don't know how to work those steps on my own. Self-will is what got me into these problems. And so those tools have allowed me to maintain the life that I have now, this free life. And when I talk to my friends, and most of my friends are not program people, I have a lot of friends in program, but these are friends that I had from before, and I didn't give up on those friends, but they don't comprehend that 10 years into recovery, I'm going to 3, 4, 5 meetings a week. And they go, hey, just know, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, I'm not available for things. And my kids grew up knowing that. And yet my kids, obviously, they didn't have a father for all those years, up until my oldest daughter was maybe a teenager. And so what they got was that commitment is what changed my life, and what changed my life changed our family's dynamics. In our family then, in recovery, there wasn't the parents who told the kids what to do. Our kids had the freedom to see if their parents, if myself or my wife were acting out in some way, some inappropriate behavior, they'd call us on it. Hey, Dad, you're treating Mom with disrespect right now in what you're doing. And can you imagine having kids be able to say that and take it in and be able to make an amend? That was a tremendous gift that my children received. And now as adults, they're not needing, I'm not sure what the word is, but they have not indulged in addictive behaviors. They have a recovery in their life, and the quality of their life, and I have no grandkids, but maybe someday that'll happen, is to pass that along. Imagine the great gift that is. What I'd like to move into is to talk a little bit about my higher power and how my higher power manifests itself in my daily life. So I went through a number of phases of having a higher power. The first was, the group, my sponsor, people like that I needed that strength from. And eventually, though, the group would let me down, right? Some person in the group would do something that would not be, appropriate or whatever, and suddenly I realized the group was a set of human beings. And so I couldn't rely on that for a permanent higher power that I could connect to change my life. So then I evolved into the one where my sponsor said, well, you pick your own characteristics of a higher power, God, whatever you want to call your higher power. And I wrote out, this is the kind of person, loves me, doesn't judge me, or what all. And that was fine, but that was more of an intellectual higher power. That wasn't something that I actually believed truly existed. And I have a math and science background, and so what it evolved to was, in my study of the universe, there's a creative process, and it works its way from a giant, vast universe all the way down to the molecular and quantum level. And I had the privilege. I live over in La Crescenta. It's right by Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I have a lot of friends who are scientists. And as we study some of these physics, I see that I cannot comprehend how life actually exists and perpetuates itself. And so my higher power simply became this power, whatever it is, the creative force behind this universe. And it has an order. There is an order, because shouldn't the universe by now, with everything spinning around and rotating, how come it hasn't gone like a washing machine when the clothes get lumped on one side and it starts going crazy and banging, and then the circuit breaker breaks and it all collapses? How is it that this universe continues to perpetuate itself in a perfect balance? And so what I realized is there's a flow of energy, literal, true energy. And in physics, there's these 4 forces I won't get into, but like gravity and magnetism. And when we get in alignment with those forces and we allow ourselves to flow the way they go, then it's a life without any conflict. It's a life without any stress. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a hot air balloon, but the beauty of the balloon is that it is pushed by wind power. And so when it's traveling along, there's wind going all around it, but the balloon is right in the stasis of that wind, and you don't feel it. It's an incredibly calming experience. Can life be like that? Can we be like a body inside of a chaotic motion called life, and yet flow through it in a way that we're protected from the conflicts of life? Now, I share with people, sponsees and my friends in the program, that I want to bring that more to an earthly state, something that I actually experience day to day. And so I think of my life as a river. And people say, oh, life on the river, it's nice and easy. I don't know if you guys have ever, gone on a river trip, like a houseboat, but it's pretty smooth. And yet I say, well, wait a minute. Sometimes the river runs in, if you've ever gone on one of those river rafting trips, it can become pretty chaotic. And sometimes the river goes right over into a waterfall, and I'll crash, my life around me just totally crashes. There's other times when the river kind of loses its way and the current carries it over to the side and it just spins around in an eddy. Have we ever experienced life where it just seems like we're going nowhere fast? But there's times, and then there's one other time when we're floating along like this leaf on the river, but suddenly for whatever reason, the leaf submerges and goes down to the bottom of the river and drags along the bottom and has all that stuff, hit it and beat on it. And so I won't spend the time now, in the few minutes I have left, to describe, activities in my life that are represented by those five symbols. So the fifth one, though, is the one I love to live in, and that's where, if you've ever just floated, have you ever inner tubed down a river and you float and there's a rock there and you think you're going to smash into it, but the water, as it gets near the rock, it goes around it and you just float around it. And the river bends and goes all these different ways. Do I need to know what's going to be around that river bend? Well, if I need to, I'm going to have that kind of stress. I'm going to want to paddle and control it. But if I just trust that river, it's going to take me where I'm supposed to be, or to opportunities in life that are new and spontaneous and unbelievable, and I could have never planned for them. Then if I kind of just roll with it, it takes me around turns that I have no idea today where I'm going to be tomorrow. I might get a phone call, I might get some other opportunity, an email, and suddenly my life is going in a direction I had no idea even that day before. So that's a 2-minute warning. So what is life like now? I think that the core of this program and the core of spirituality lies in the story of, I think it's Dr. Paul or whatever, and we call it the acceptance prayer, and I still think of it as page 442, but it's some other page in the newer version. And I think most of you know that it goes like this, right? When I'm disturbed, right, there's some chaos going on in my life, some conflict. It's not because of the conflict, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, and it's because I need that conflict to be different than the way it is. And as long as I need to control it or change it, in order for me to be happy, I'm going to find no peace at all in my life. I think it says that nothing in this world happens by mistake, that God has a plan, and I don't like to get into the extremes because there's many, evil things that happen in our world, but if we just focus on the day-to-day personal things, I believe God has a plan for me. And if I'm disturbed, instead of it being a negative situation in my life, it's actually an opportunity for me to see where have I now suddenly taken back my self-will. And if I can let that person, place, thing, or situation be perfect exactly the way it is, then that disturbance will go away and I can get back into that flow that brings me a peace and a freedom. And last, I just want to say that I have something I call the 7 deadly emotions. And these are emotions that I actually had to write about and to offer them, offer myself to God to do with me as He would, or as it would. And those emotions are tied to, I can't live in the past. And yet one of the promises I think we're going to read says we won't regret the past, but we won't shut the door on it either. We'll be able to use that experience to help others. What are the emotions that tie to the past that bind me down, that I call these deadly emotions, or these chains of hell? They are regret, guilt, and shame. Those are the ones that were huge blocks for me that kept me from being, happy, joyous, and free. And then there's the future emotions. I'm worried. I'm anxious. I have fear that the future won't give me what I want or will take away what I have. And the seventh one is in the present tense. Can I live free from all emotions, or am I in a disturbed state? Am I in a state of stress? So I honestly can tell you that today I have a stress-free life. It's a miracle. Whenever something's stressing me out, I stop doing it. I stop pursuing it. I stop controlling it. It's really a pretty simple thing. I might have to call a sponsor and say, what's happened to me? Give me some feedback. But when I do that, I really, really just don't have any problems in life. And it's amazing that because that's what I'm giving out to the universe, that seems to be what I'm getting back. I just want you to know that I look in the mirror every day, and I hope you take this the right way, but I can look in that mirror and go, RJ, how's it going today? I love you. You're my favorite person. And it truly is true. I wouldn't want to be anybody else in this world. And I hope that that's the recovery that everyone in the program can get. I don't see that much in other programs, but that's what I see, both the potential and the realization in these rooms of Overeaters Anonymous. So thanks for letting me share today.